Israel is our life insurance. Like, we know that nothing is going to go wrong for Jews in Europe, because if something starts to go sideways, we have a strong country, independent country that can come and step in to solve the situation.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways that people's lives changed on and after the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking with people in Israel and around the world about how the devastating attack by Hamas has shifted, shaped, and changed them. To learn more about our podcast, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. I'm sitting here with Luca and David. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
So I'm Luca Spizzichino. I'm 29. I'm a journalist and a freelance in the communication area. I started my journey in the Italian Union of Jewish Students and Young Professionals 8 years ago.
Yeah, I'm David Fiorentini. I come from Siena, small town in Tuscany next to Florence. I used to be a medical student while I was president of the Italian Union of Jewish Students. Then I graduated. Now I'm the policy officer of the union, so trying to give some guidance on how to run certain projects within the Italian Jewish context, let's say, to try to navigate this panorama of various organizations. And I started getting involved into the union because at one Congress, a good friend of mine said, there's no one coming from small communities. Everybody's always from Rome and Milan. Why don't you step up? And I said, okay, why not? And I was only 18. I didn't know what I was going to get into. And in the turn that it became my real job, while med school became like a hobby. So
That's saying a lot. I just want to clarify that this organization is actually not just for students. It covers 18 to 35 young professionals. Yep. And what kind of activities do you guys sponsor? What kind of things do you do as a group?
We work 360 degrees, from like the aggregation till the political stuff, also advocacy, the fight against antisemitism. Also, the Shoah is also an important issue for our union. It's also written our constitution, actually. Advocacy for Israel as the Jewish state and as a homeland of the Jewish people. What we do is like also going to the university, like we are going to do tomorrow, to advocate for like the right for study of the students, not only the Jewish students, because the demonstration that happened during the year inside the university affected not only the Jewish students and Israeli students inside the university, but everyone, because their exams were postponed or even canceled. What we wanted to do is like advocate for the right to study. We are paying taxes in order to go to the universities, and it's our right to go to study.
I myself have been thinking about this, the impact of the protests and in our country, the Gaza encampments on university campuses, not just on Jews, not just on Zionists or Israelis, but on the learning environment for everybody. Can you tell me whether or not you guys have gained traction? Like, do people outside the Jewish community agree with you that this is an issue?
At the very beginning, honestly, we felt very alone. No one was understanding what were our thoughts, what were our feelings about the 7th of October and the raising of anti-Semitism in Italy. Then started the encampments inside the universities. Few students say, it's not our university anymore. We don't recognize it. They said, okay, it's the moment to raise our voice, not in the same way that they are doing inside the universities, but in another way, in a democratic way, like talking with the rectors, the deans, also through the newspapers.
I have one question, though, which is very important for me, I guess, as an American Jew, because we have seen a lot of very vocal American Jewish students who are against Israel, who are anti-Zionists. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you have that same group that is vocal here in Italy, and if you're working with them or if you don't see them, or how that goes.
Okay, it's good to feel something for what is happening in Gaza Strip and etc. And there were
it's good to care that people are
but also
hurting.
We care about them, obviously, yes, because we are human. We see like innocent people that die.
Of course.
But in general, what we experienced is like the minority. Sometimes it behaves like the so-called pro-Palestinian movements that are occupying the university, etc. We have to be aware that they exist. We have also accept, because obviously we live in a democracy and we need to listen to them. If they want, we can also discuss with them. when we try to, they don't want to talk with us. If they want to talk with us, our door is open. We can argue inside like a private space between us. It's not something that we need to talk about in the open society. It's something that we need to discuss because it's also a matter of our community.
Yes.
If we want a strong community, diversity of voices, we need to listen to each other, talk with to each other. But if we don't want to listen to our voice, it's a problem.
So, David, now I have some questions for you. I'm going to start where Luca left off a little bit and ask, why do you think that there is less of an anti-Zionist Jewish presence on this continent than in America?
It's a very tough question because we do have, as Luca said, this, for example, Jewish Voice for Peace, Italian branch or European branches that are very vocal. However, I think that in general, they are way smaller because the community is very attached to its identity, to its tradition. It's a very conservative community in general. So that's why there's less space for this kind of more extremist views towards Israel. There's not one main Jewish organization that holds this kind of views. It's always like groups of students, groups of young people here and there. So it's not really one unique entity that is fighting towards a certain narrative. So the fact that they're so scattered makes their narrative more difficult to be spread around the country. Maybe also because from Europe it's easier to go to Israel and find out what's the actual reality on the ground.
That's a fascinating idea.
We have low-cost flights to Israel that with $50 you can go to Tel Aviv and see firsthand what's going on. I think that one good effect for us was that, let's say, the neutral people, those who are in between, even the Jews who are not so super Zionist and those who are more, let's say, also very calm in the middle, when they see what the other side is, which is occupation, violence, vandalism, they see that our side is the more civil, calm, and democratic one. So they shift towards us as a result.
You're saying that there's this geographical proximity between Europe and Israel that makes it easy to check it out on your own. I also think that there's more of an emotional tie between European Jews and Israelis. Like I keep hearing people say in Europe, I can live in Europe because there is an Israel. Is that something that you feel at all? Like your life is possible because Israel exists?
Lately, when in Amsterdam, there was the whole attack on the Israeli fans that were watching a football game. The moment when I saw the news that Israel was sending like planes and was directly intervening in the heart of Europe to save fellow Jews from this basically pogrom that happened, that's when I realized pragmatically, before I knew it, but I never felt it firsthand, this was very real situation where Israel is our life insurance. Like we know that nothing is going to go wrong for Jews in Europe because if something starts to go sideways, we have a strong country, independent country that can come and step in to solve the situation. Obviously, in Italy, we feel quite safe, like we trust our institutions to take care of us. But it's always good to have a backup. So it's always good to have a plan B just in case.
That is the story of Jews. Sometimes you need a backup. So Luca mentioned that there's been work on combating anti-Semitism since before October 7th. And since you are the past president, I'm wondering what you can share about the work that you've done against anti-Semitism before the start of this war.
Yeah, so let's say that before October 7th, I thought that this job was difficult. After October 7th, I'm nostalgic of those times. So it feels like there was no anti-Semitism at all compared to today. Like,
but did you think that there was then? You thought that there was anti-Semitism
back then? I thought that there was, but I was way more optimistic on the reaction of the general public, let's say. That I knew that if someone in the street would start to do Nazi salutes or say that the Holocaust didn't happen, like general society would identify that as an act of anti-Semitism and somehow put it aside. We had maybe to step into certain conferences in universities that were a bit problematic, but I was optimistic towards the average Italian, let's say. Today, I feel that even the average Italian is like, come on, with all what's going on in Gaza, you're still talking about the Shoah. And this is not the extremist with the keffia in the square. It's the average Mario Rossi from the building up in front of you that is just a bit pissed off with the situation, doesn't care neither about Jews, neither about Palestinians, just doesn't want to be bothered by this international news that somehow is influencing his daily life. He just wants, like, come on, stop. Like when you do with kids when they argue and you're like, come on, stop it. It's just a toy. We know that it's not just a toy, and it's very complex to explain it to other people when they see it like a mere territorial dispute. Like, come on, give him a bit more land and stop it and close the deal. I want to keep being optimist and say that everyone in Italy realizes that Holocaust remembrance is something important. What I'm less optimistic about is they might say, yeah, it's important, but without knowing why. Like when in a test, you know that the right answer is 4, so you just write 4 without actually
reading the question,
solving the riddle, whatever. One of our ways of action of our union is also going to schools, to high schools, to do Holocaust remembrance, not just, let's say, the commemoration, but to explain what is the Shoah, what happened. And even the professors don't realize why it's important, and they're just giving you a free hour just so they can tick this topic out of the yearly program. You've got students who are not at all prepared to the things that you're going to say. Like, I'm going to go there explaining what is the Shoah, but maybe they never heard about what is a Jew. And then also the banalization, it comes up to that, because if the Shoah is just, it's just many people who died, and which is very bad, very sad, then any conflict in the world is like the Shoah then, because in any conflict there's people dying. And Holocaust Remembrance Day becomes basically a day for commemorating any kind of sad or evil thing that happened in the history of humanity. And you lose that unicity of the message of the Shoah, of Holocaust remembrance. And this also lead to antisemitism, because then you say, oh, why do you think you Jews are so special that you have this special day just for you? And do you think the Shoah is so special? But look, all the people in the world have suffered, have passed very bad killings and very bad wars and situations. But why you're so special that you need your own day? Maybe we also didn't teach it in the right way. Holocaust denial is increasing. How is it possible that after all these years of conferences, of lectures, of books, of podcasts, after all of this, it's still increasing? It's not all our fault, for sure. There's anti-Semitism out there that is never gonna be solved. But we have also to ask ourselves what we can do more to deal with these issues. And it's very complicated, because also today with the communication methods that are always going so fast, now it's also a generational
It
problem.
is a generational gap. Okay, so let's pass it back to Luca. Your other job is as a social media content creator. So you are probably very aware of the fact that Jews in Israel seem to be very behind in the social media hasbara space. So I want you to talk about that. But I also want to ask you a slightly different question, which is that when David says that he has nostalgia for the anti-Semitism of early 2023, I'm wondering how intense the job, and this is volunteer work, you guys are not paid for this, I'm wondering how intense the job has felt for you since the start of the war.
When I ran as to be a board member of the UGEI, I was like, okay, like all the wars that Israel has faced, it couldn't be so long. At the very beginning, I wasn't so aware of how bad the situation was going. After 3 months, I really noticed how also the memory of the Shoah was changing somehow in the society's mind. Very, very easy to banalize and also to make comparison between what is happening during the war and what was happened to the Jews in Shoah.
So very easy to compare what's happening in Gaza with what happened to Jews, yes.
If everything is genocide, there is no more genocides if you put a word for every war that is happening now and also in the past. The word was coined after the Second World War to understand what is like the industrialization of death, the idea of exterminate a population, something that happened through history, but I really understood that the stuff was going bad after the Holocaust Remembrance Day in 2024. It was getting worse month after month. March, April, also May, in which there were lessons, no no exams. So it was common to occupy buildings because, okay, if we miss a lesson, it's not a problem. How it's happened that for like 4 months, the university were hell for the Jewish students and also in general for the students that were not able to go to university in a proper way.
So there was actually a time when classes were canceled and then exams were canceled
Yeah.
as a result of all the demonstrations. Wow.
Yeah. And also the intent of these encampments to boycott Israeli universities, something that is also against like the ideals of the university to have like a connection between universities from Israel to Italy, or also Israel to, I don't know,
Egypt,
Egypt,
all over the
everywhere.
place, right?
And they were against it only because there was a Jewish state that is doing this war for them, was doing this genocide. And so you can have accords with the Israeli universities, but who is going to lose from this boycott? From a minority, the vast majority lose the possibility to reach the highest heights for the highest levels of education in the excellence of the Israeli university. And what we did through the year is like expressing these concerns of saying, okay, it's something not normal that you are asking for boycotting universities. Most of the times, the university are the places complaining about what is happening inside a country. Most of the times, it's the university. And so you are deciding to boycott the same universities that maybe are against the government. So it's something more wider, not to boycott Israeli universities because they are doing the war, but only because they are the Israeli universities. It's discrimination. Also talking about the social media, I wasn't so surprised, honestly, because the problem of the social media is something that came from even before the 7th of October. It came also in the 2021 when there was the war against Hamas and the Palestinian Jihad, also in 2021. They were like the first like signs of we are losing the war because we are not able, the numbers are not in our favor. It happened also a few days ago in our social media channels because we were talking about antisemitism that is not a Jewish issue, it's a generic issue. It's like an issue of the society. They will say, no, no, all the same Jews, and they are complaining about what is happening and ta 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 ta. I try to report all those comments and nothing happens, and they start to getting worse and worse and worse, talking about Jews and talking about Hitler, something like that. More than 200 comments in less than 24 hours. And so the problem is that who are the victims of this? We are the victims, and we are trying to say raise awareness to the society, to the big techs, to say, okay, the life, the Jewish life, the life of the minority in the countries is getting worse due to your not doing anything about it.
Everyone who's sitting at this table can pass, right? We're not necessarily visible as minorities. Did you feel like a minority before the war started, before October 7th? And do you feel like more of a minority now?
I think we are more a minority now, honestly. We have like also the accords between the states and the Jewish communities. And also that some issues that we can work with, like for example, the workplaces and the stuff, the Jewish holidays. But in general, the general feeling of being a minority is more now not due to the institution that are very close to us, but from the general society that is kind of isolating us, and if not, are more indifferent about what are our issues, our concerns. So we have to struggle with this, try to move on, go with our resilience that something is inside our DNA to move on, also doing our Jewish life like nothing is happening. I would say like the police, the army, all the stuff that is very close to us, and they understood our concerns and also the risks of what is happening in the Middle East could arrive also in Europe, and they completely understood it. In less than 200 meters from here, there was a terrorist attack in 1982, in which a child of 2 years old died during Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret, in which is usual to do the beracha, the blessing for the children. And they attacked deliberately in that day in which they knew that there were children, and they attacked the synagogue, and a child died.
Well, it's the
And
same
now,
with
thank God, it's not happening that because they understood that what they did wrong in the past 40 years. And now they're getting better and better. And also the relationship between the community and the
law enforcement.
ministries are getting better and better.
Well, I want to make the point that October 7th was also on not Shemini Atzeret Simchat Torah, but in Israel they're the same day, and it was
Yep.
the same thing, I think.
It was quite moving for us, this connection between like also the dates that was almost the same. It's very close to our DNA, our struggles that we faced through the years. From here, at the very, very beginning, we couldn't do anything. What we can do from here in order to help what is murdered in the kibbutzim near the Gaza Strip. And so, at the very beginning, we said, okay, we can do anything. And then the day after, as a resilient people, we planned planes in order to go to the courtyards in the kibbutzim in order to help them for the fruits and etc. And also going into Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem in order to help them with all the stuff for the soldiers, for the
Evacuees.
evacuates, all the stuff. Also fundraise for them a lot. From this point of view, it helped also us a lot in order to unite and go beyond also our division, because there were a division, obviously, two Jews, three opinions. So, in that moment, there was only one opinion, that is Israel is in struggle. We have to help Israel. That's it.
It really seems to me that your identity as a Jew is probably your first identity. Would you say that? It's the way you think about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Jewish, but also I'm Italian. That is something that in society, the ignorance helps a lot to say, yeah, no, you're a Jew, so you're Israeli. No, I'm Italian from generation. I'm Italian. I'm Roman from generation. I'm Italian. On the other side, I am also Jew. And it's very hard, it's a very strong identity, but can go together.
You told me a little bit about your family story here. Could you share about your personal upbringing and also your family story in Italy?
I think that comes from a bit from my family. That's also my grandma from my father. She told her story and my grandpa's story because my grandpa died when I was one. And since the beginning, I had like this mission of doing something for the community. Through the years, also, I was like me, in the Bnei Akiva, and I was quite a lot inside, also being Boger, Madrich, and etc. And then I said, okay, after that, what can I do? And then I decided to move to the Italian Union of Jewish Students, young professional. And my journey is continuing till like 2026 for sure. And then maybe helping the new board, who is going to be the new president, helping like he helped me. And in general, yeah, I think it's something that comes from, in general, from the identity of the Jewish community, but also in general from my home. Jewish community, especially in Europe, is based on volunteering. There are few people that are professionals, but the feeling of being helpful for the community is something that you grow with since the day one.
So how did your family survive the war, the Second World War?
My grandma was hidden with the nuns for a few years till like the liberation from the allies of Rome. My grandpa was saved by a person that was an anti-fascist, knew my family, and hid in his home for a few weeks. And then he found a place where to stay outside Rome. But they moved a lot from a place to another. Also, my grandma families did. Also, the grandpa of my grandma that was killed in the Fosse Terratina. It was like a massacre that the Nazis did after an attack by the partisans here in Rome. There was a retaliation by the Nazis to take people from around the streets, literally, and took them to the prison. And then the day later, shot them in the head. The grandpa of my grandma, a spy, knew him here in Campo de Fiore, and he called him by his nickname. And so he said, hi. And the Nazis arrived, took him to the prison here in Via Tasso, near the Colosseum. Hours later, moved to the place where they killed everyone. They were killed at least more than 335 people, of which more than 70 were Jews from the prisons and also from here in the streets. My grandpa was helping my grandma when I was with the nuns giving her like food. And a day he didn't went, she understood that something bad was happened to her grandpa. Only later she discovered that her grandpa was killed in the first Saturday. The other side, they didn't tell so much about their story during the Shoah, but in general, they had false documents from a side. They move a lot in this area, the other side. So, but in general, it's not like Holocaust survives from the camps, but like try to survive here during the occupation. Everything is a story in the big mosaic of Shoah stories.
Yeah.
And I think everyone needs to be told in order to make the remembrance strong and also alive.
Well, now I understand some of your passion for Holocaust remembrance education.
Yep.
I'll continue with David. Totally different direction that I want to go in here, which is aliyah. What percentage of students that you work with in the organization talk to you about the possibility of moving to Israel? And has that gone up since October 7th?
So I don't have a specific number to give you, but for sure it went up. Even myself, I'm always considered aliyah regardless of October 7th. And I think that most of the people that I talked with, that they wanted and thought about aliyah, they were thinking about it regardless of October 7th. What happened after was that clearly after October 7th, they also, it was an extra reason to think about it and take it into consideration, let's say, especially because maybe in Italy, we don't see as much violence as maybe in France or in Belgium or in England. I had many French friends instead who did Aliyah specifically because of a security issue. And this is something that also within the union we try to stress, which is we are super happy that if someone decides to do Aliyah, but really wish that it's something that they do because of their wish, because of their actual intention, and not because of a forced situation, because we take that as a failure of Italy or more in general Europe's institutions that are not able to keep even their own citizens safe.
So you want people to make aliyah proactively, not out of fear.
Unfortunately, in history of Israel, most of people who went to Israel went there because they were forced to, let's say, because of persecutions, of Holocaust, of many kind of threats. But today, where we live in a free Europe, in a democratic Europe, where in theory all those kind of extremism should be put aside and shouldn't become mainstream, this kind of, let's say, old style aliyah where you run to Israel with only one suitcase and with an incredible journey with a boat going all over the Mediterranean. This is more of a story for the movies. Like today, we hope that this kind of situation shouldn't happen again. And it's crazy that instead some people feel the same way and feel the same kind of threat that they have to move. And because Israel is the only place that makes them feel safe. And instead, the Jews who stay here, many friends, my Jewish friends here, they think that going to Israel instead is even more dangerous. Like they see Israelis are as the ones more in danger because they are the ones that have to pick up the rifle and actually go fight. While instead, all my Israeli friends, when they come to Italy, they look at me like I'm the hero that is doing something, that living in a dangerous environment, while I'm in the countryside of Siena, in Tuscany,
Isn't
with
that
the sunflowers,
so
happy.
interesting? Yes.
And I'm very happy of that because it means that both the diaspora and Israel, we both admire each other and we both think that each other is living a very difficult struggle. It's two completely different experiences, really two completely different mindsets. But when I see the individual Israelis, when they come to study here in Europe, I feel that they, let's say, see our struggle, especially because they discover it for the first time. Like they really understand what they discover antisemitism, like in the real old-fashioned way. Like they go to the university and someone tells them, "Hey, do you own a bank?" And they are shocked. Well, for us, it's almost usual. Like it's obvious that someone is going to say some anti-Semitic remark like this, but for them, it's the first time ever because in Israel, nobody's going to make this comment in a
There's no
serious way.
anti-Semitism in Israel. There's terrorism there. It's very different. Yes.
It's a very interesting psychological way of perceiving anti-Semitism in different ways. What I think is missing from Israel is more on a national level, not individual person of the single Israeli. but more on a national level in terms of communication. Because I think sometimes what Israel communicates is thought for their Israeli audience, not for the rest of the world. Like last year in 2024, there was a picture exactly the week of Holocaust Remembrance Day, Israeli soldier arresting many terrorists in Gaza, and they were all like round up and put on trucks to take them, I don't know, to prison, let's say. I don't know exactly where, but there was the picture of those people in handcuff on trucks. And Israel posted that picture to show the Israeli public, look, the army is working, we're doing a good job. But come on, you are posting it exactly the week of Holocaust Remembrance Day. How many pro-Palestinians do you think that are going to take the exact same picture and say, look, the Jews are doing exactly the same as the Nazis did. Look, they are even on tracks. It's the same.
Do you find yourself defending Israel a lot, even internally to other Jews? Or do you feel like the Jews here understand what they see?
I think the vast majority of the community doesn't really have they're not angry or pissed off at Israel communication style, because they realize that there's a, let's say, internal front to think about. That's the
Right.
most important thing. When you're in the Middle East, you have to communicate in a certain way to show strength. But many people, when they try to explain the reasons of Israel, they try to do asbara, they try to explain things, they're very frustrated that they have to come up with let's say, some extra explanation. What I criticize is also, let's call it our extremists, who are like, no, we don't have to explain nothing to anyone. Like, if they don't understand, it's their problem. Theoretically, it's fair because no people in the world has to explain themselves as much as we do. So there's a double standard. But at the same time, I saw that some political allies, some people who maybe are like in the middle, or some parties who are historically like with close to Israel, they start also to distance themselves from Israel, because the perception that they get, the images that they get, they start to be too much for them, let's say. Because those who hate Israel, okay, it's true, they're gonna hate it regardless of any explanation you do. But at least those who love Israel, let's not lose them. So it's a job that we have to do, and it's difficult, but we have to stuck to it and not give up, because then those who are our allies, at some point they're gonna draw a line and say, this is too much. You have to present, like, you have to do something different.
You're really speaking like a person who has been a leader, who is a leader, who has been a leader. I mean, you have kind of a strategic and institutional understanding of what is going wrong. Has it been difficult for you to change your role and step down?
Look, at some point I said to myself, I have to study medicine.
Even if it's a minor
even if
distraction.
it's
Yes.
I have to graduate, and now I'm studying to get into residency, so I have to focus a bit on that. I know that also my journey doesn't end here. The journey of Jewish activism is really, it's forever, like regardless of the title of my business card. As long as I'm taking care of the project that I started, running new ideas, and actually have the possibility of making an impact, then I'm happy. And that's the important thing at the end of the day.
So now that you're not the whole face of the organization, I'll ask you a tough question. Even though you yourself are considering aliyah, do you think that aliyah poses a threat to this community, which is small, as I understand it?
When I say to my friends that I'm thinking about aliyah, they all like, are you stupid? You have to stay here. We need you here.
Right.
And this is a wider challenge, not just of the Jewish community, but in general, that in Italy, a lot of brilliant minds from Italy who are studying in Italy, luckily has many good universities, who are studying, graduating, and then running away to, Switzerland, England, France, wherever there's better quality of life, better salaries. When it comes to the Jewish world, the drive is not better salaries, and is not better, like economic situation, because in Israel, like everything costs double than
It's
here
worse.
in Italy. The salaries are lowered. You go to Israel because of your ideology, of your passion, of your Zionism. It's tough to say to a kid, no, don't go to Israel because we need you here. No, if someone wants to go, it's good, because all of the education system that we created throughout generation is based on this idea of having a very deep and genuine connection to Israel. So if someone ends up wanting to go to Israel, that's the outcome that we work
Well, it's
through.
just very interesting, because it should seem like an institutional success when you cultivate a love of Israel, kids go and visit, there's a real relationship, and then they leave.
then
It
they leave.
should be an institutional success, but I see that it's more complicated.
It's because the numbers are not growing, unfortunately, in Italy. If success is going to Israel, then good. I asked this question to the former president of the community of Rome, and asked her, what do you think success is? And she said, let's not focus on what success is. Let's see what an unsuccessful event is. Unsuccessful is you assimilate and lose your Jewish identity. So as long as you don't do that, any other outcome is fine. So sure, any outcome has its pros and cons, because even if you're a bright young leader and stay in Italy, Israel is losing out on a bright mind. So I think we should cherish both options, as long as we don't assimilate, because that's the real threat that we feel of getting so far away from the community, so disconnected. Right before going to Israel on volunteer trip to pick like tomatoes, like many people have done it in the past year. Before going, I was reading Ben-Gurion saying, because we have to create a communication system, a promotion system for Zionism, where the young doctor from Europe will not have just to move to Israel to be a doctor. He will have to come to do what's needed in Israel, even if it's picking tomatoes. And I'm like, come on, it's me. Like, he's talking to me. Like, I have to be a young doctor. And then if I have to come to Israel, I have to pick tomatoes. That's what needed. There's a bigger picture that is going to drive you and take you to where you need to go. If our destiny is to go all to Israel, then very good. But then also I see that there are many communities of Israelis who did Yerida. Like in Berlin, I think there's more
that
Israelis.
Means Israelis
Yerida,
who moved
exactly,
to the diaspora, yes.
Who moved back.
Yes,
Let's say,
Berlin,
back to
that's
Europe.
true. And we were just in Amsterdam, and the rabbi said the future of the Jewish community here is Israelis.
So if in 50 years, let's say, the future of European community is being composed of Israelis who went to live in Europe, good. Why not? Sure.
You have that same tension within your family of going to Israel, coming back from Israel. If you're comfortable, can you share a little bit about your parents, their journeys?
So my dad's from Rome, and he, at some point in the 90s, decided to do aliyah, went to Israel, and he was in a school full of Russians. One day...
This was in the 90s?
In the 90s.
Yeah, so the Russians were Russian Jews were leaving.
Russian Jews were leaving. So his best friend, Vladimir, one day told him, Filippo, you need to make a house party because it's Friday, we do a party. Okay, so he planned a party. Then at last minute, he moved the party one day before. So he had the party on Thursday. But he forgot to tell it to a friend. And that friend was supposed to bring another friend. So on Friday, they knock. And the other friend was my mom. So my dad opened the door like in his underwear. He was like, the party was yesterday.
It's a good way to start.
So damn, that's how they met. After a couple of years, they got married. And then my grandpa was here in Italy. So they had to go, like they went to visit him for a few months. And then I was born. Surprise, plot twist. And so they say, okay, let's stay for kindergarten. Then, okay, let's stay for high school, then for med school. And 25 years later, we are still here.
And we're still here.
And every year we say, now we are going to sell the country house and we're going to go to Israel. Nobody's buying, so we are still here in Italy.
So the plan was not originally to come to Italy and stay.
Exactly. It was just to stay for a while, like just to take care a bit of grandpa. Grandpa, in the meanwhile, also passed away like 14 years ago. But, I was in middle school, so I said, let's finish middle school, then finish high school. And now the situation is that my parents are starting to get old. My dad's going to turn 77 next week. Moving to Israel at 77 years old is not so easy, so we are planning things out. So that's why also I'm thinking, I always thought about doing aliyah, because I have two parents who are all the time talking about going back to Israel. When? We don't know when, but it's always on the table.
That's really interesting. Siena is 40 Jews?
40, that's it.
Wow. Are you active? Is there a synagogue?
There's a synagogue, very beautiful, that we are refurbishing right now, because there was an earthquake 2 years ago that kind of damaged a bit the building. And we open the synagogue once a month. But that once a month, we have to be sure that it's going to be minyan. So even if you're not religious, you're not observant, whatever, that once a month you've got to come, because we need 10 men. So also when I studied in Milan, that once a month, I was coming back to Siena because without me, there wouldn't be. I was the 10th. So that's also where my sense of responsibility towards, let's say, Jewish activism comes from. Because when you know, and it's so clear that if you don't go to the synagogue, the community dies, let's say. Now, if us 5 young boys don't keep up the community, nobody's going to do it for us. It's going to turn into a museum and that's it.
That's a kind of responsibility, but also honor that's hard to imagine from
I
a
feel
large
it
Jewish community like
I
mine.
try
Yes.
to look at it in a positive way and try to feel it as an honor that the history of hundreds of years of Jews in Siena is now on my shoulders. It's like, in football terms, it would be like when you see your team as a kid and you see the players, and then it's your turn to put on the jersey and go into the field.
Do you consider yourself religious? Are you observant at all?
So I keep kosher style. I don't eat pork, but I mix. I might eat a cheeseburger, a sneaky cheeseburger every now and then. I'm trying not to, but slowly. In a country where pork is almost a divinity, it's quite difficult to sneak out of all this and to keep kosher. Maybe in Rome, with such amazing restaurants, is a bit more easy. In Siena, there's no kosher store, no kosher market, there's nothing. So it's a bit more tough. I keep a kippah in my pocket because you never know when you stumble upon a synagogue. So I try to. Maybe I might not be very observant in like kashrut, and I'm not Shomer Shabbat, but every Friday I have kiddush with my parents, and we try to have a Shabbat dinner, and I feel very connected to God.
Has October 7th shifted any of that for you? Do you feel your faith has changed or your sense of self has changed at all since the war began?
After October 7th, this sense of it's our turn to wear the jersey was multiplied by 100. This war is the war of our generation. My uncle fought in 6-day war. My grandparents arrived to Israel in 46, so they fought in 48. My mom served during in the period right before Yom Kippur War. My cousin is now retired, but general of the Air Force. So I almost felt so motivated and so proud of what I was doing and proud of being the president of my union in that specific moment, because it really felt like we were having such an impact. Since the day after, one of the main things we've done was to gather all those like socks, underwear, necessities, torches, phone chargers, whatever was needed, and place it into suitcases and through El Al to send it to Israel. So I remember I used to go to the airport like 3-4 times a week, back and forth. I had even some friends who went to fight. I had a really good friend that is a sniper on the border with Lebanon. So one of the suitcases, we managed to send it specifically to his unit, and we placed also 2 kilos of spaghetti. So that thing is
even better.
like, okay, it's maybe they were 20 people, so it's okay. It's one meal. They can have 2 kilos of pasta. But the idea that somewhere in Italy, somebody is thinking of you, that you are also Italian, so you're going to need some pasta, not just underwear and socks and whatever. They made a video back to us, like, thank you video. And I think that was, this specific episode is the thing that I'm most proud of the whole 2 months that I was president during the war, because it really showed our connection with Israel was so personal, so intimate. But I surely feel more proud of what I'm doing and of all our efforts collectively as UGEI, as the union, but also as a Italian Jewish community that all together put aside all of our differences, all of our fights, left, right. We are all together in this mission, and it felt so beautiful to see the whole community come together as never before. So many people that were so far away from the community even got closer to Israel and to Judaism because of that. So I think that in all the awful things that happens after October 7th, one beautiful thing that we can at least cherish is this sense of togetherness, of community that unexpectedly showed up after generations and finally made us see what is the final goal.
David, I really want to thank you. Your perspective is so valuable, and it means a lot to me that you shared your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
איזו תקופה מוזרה, אנחנו חיים בעד מתי, בחיי. רוצה להתקרבן לישון, להתעורר במקום אחר, ורק לוותר. איי, 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 אבל למרות הכל, everything's gonna be okay, ואני כל יום אומר, כמה טוב, כמה טוב, כמה טוב הולך להיות פה, כמה טוב, אתה תראה, כמה טוב, כמה טוב הולך להיות פה, כמה טוב, אתה תראה. בתוך הנשמה נמצאת גם אצלי וגם אצל האומה. אויב בחוץ ושטן מבפנים מנסים להספיד אותי, אלה החיים. איי 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 איי, אבל למרות הכל everything's gonna be okay, ואני כל יום אומר, כמה טוב, כמה טוב, כמה טוב הולך להיות פה, כמה טוב, אתה תראה, כמה טוב, כמה טוב הולך להיות פה, כמה טוב, אתה תראה, אתה תראה. כמה טוב, אתה תראה, אני כל יום אומר